So there's been a big development between Nigeria and Burkina Faso. And if you're just catching up on it, you're about to get all the details right here. It's a very interesting story, one that involves military diplomacy, international politics, and how countries handle delicate situations, especially when there's a plane, soldiers, and some tension involved. Now, this whole thing started earlier this week. A Nigerian Air Force plane, a C-130 transport aircraft to be precise, had to make an emergency landing in Burkina Faso. According to reports, the plane was having some technical issues, right? And because of that, it had to make an unscheduled stop in Bobo-Dioulasso, Sebula-Sebaso, a major city in Burkina Faso. Now, this might sound like a minor situation, but when we dig deeper, it gets much bigger. This wasn't just any commercial flight, no. This plane was on a military mission. Carrying a crew of Nigerian soldiers, its destination was Portugal, where it was supposed to undergo maintenance and technical servicing. So imagine the seriousness of the situation. It wasn't supposed to land anywhere else, but due to the emergency, it had no choice but to land. Here's the twist though. While the plane made its emergency landing as per international aviation protocols, Burkina Faso was not pleased about it. The authorities said the Nigerian plane entered the airspace without permission. And that, my friends, is a big deal. In international law, airspace is highly protected, and any unapproved flights are treated as violations. So you can imagine how things escalated from there. The Burkina Faso government decided to detain the aircraft. Not only that, but they also detained the Nigerian soldiers on board. For a moment, it seemed like the situation might lead to some major diplomatic issues between the two countries. Why? Because when one country detains another country's personnel, it raises serious questions about national sovereignty, military protocols, and international law. So, with the plane and soldiers being held in Burkina Faso, Nigeria had to act fast. The Nigerian government didn't waste time. The federal government of Nigeria immediately reached out to Burkina Faso to open diplomatic talks. They needed to resolve the issue before things got worse. Now, why is this such a big deal in the first place? Well, Nigeria and Burkina Faso are both part of West Africa. And as we all know, West Africa has seen some political and military instability in recent years. Countries like Mali, Nigeria, and the far Burkina Faso have been involved in military coups, where the military had ousted civilian governments. And we also know that Nigeria, being the largest country in Africa, plays a very significant role in regional diplomacy. So when an incident like this happens, it has the potential to affect the entire region. Nigeria's response, was a calculated one. They didn't want to make things worse. Instead of rushing into any military confrontation, they decided to go the diplomatic route. This is really important because it shows that Nigeria is trying to avoid escalation. There's been enough military tension in West Africa already, and Nigeria doesn't want to add to that. And let's not forget, the Nigerian military, Detention, has a reputation for being one of the most professional and disciplined forces in the region. So, for them to go straight to diplomatic channels shows just how much they value peaceful resolution. Now, let's talk about the broader picture here. Burkina Faso, in particular, has been facing some major political shifts. Over the past few years, the country has seen a number of military coups in the north. The most recent one was just earlier this year when the Burkina Faso junta, the military leaders in charge, decided to leave ECOWAS. So, the Economic Community of West African States. ECOWAS is a regional group made up of 15 West African nations, including Nigeria And the group generally advocates for democratic governance and regional cooperation. But because of the political shifts, Burkina Faso's military government doesn't see eye to eye with ECOWAS or some other countries in the region. And this is where it gets tricky. The airspace issue becomes even more sensitive. If you remember, countries that have had recent coups, like Mali and Niger, have had strained relations with ECOWAS and other African nations. So when Petomeva and Burkina Faso men detained the Nigerian plane, it wasn't just a routine border security issue. It became a diplomatic minefield. The question on everyone's mind: how will this affect future relations? Will this incident turn into a diplomatic standoff, or will both nations work it out smoothly? Well, here's what we know so far. Nigeria's it opened up lots of diplomatic talks to find a solution, and the situation seems to be heading toward a peaceful resolution. Nigeria's foreign ministry has been in touch with Burkina Faso's government offered to clear things up and make sure the Nigerian crew and plane are released. It's likely that there will be some formal apologies or UPG explanations provided exchange between the two countries to smooth things over. Now, at this point, it's clear that Nigeria is sticking to its diplomatic guns. They don't want to escalate the situation into something more dangerous. And honestly, it's a good move. You don't want to see two African nations fighting over something that could be resolved through talks. But we also need to talk about the wider implications of this event. What does this mean for regional cooperation? In West Africa, can countries like Nigeria and Burkina Faso put aside their differences and work together moving forward? It's tough to say. But one thing is for sure: Nigeria's handling of the situation shows the country is committed to peace and dialogue. As you may know, West Africa has been through its fair share of crises in the past, from civil wars to military coups to political instability, and the last thing anyone wants is to see more conflict erupting in the region. So the fact that Nigeria is opting for diplomacy rather than confrontation is a hopeful sign for all of us in West Africa. But let's be real. This situation could have easily spiraled out of control. One plane landing, one misunderstanding in the air, and suddenly there's a possibility of escalated tensions. But because both Nigerian authorities and Burkina Faso's government are committed to diplomacy, we can hope for a positive resolution. As we continue to watch this situation unfold, the next important aspect to consider is how Nigeria's role in ECOWAS could affect the ongoing discussions with Burkina Faso. ECOWAS, or the Economic Community of West African States, has been a key player in regional diplomacy blast in West Africa for decades. They've been involved in resolving conflicts, fostering trade, and maintaining peace in the region. So when a member of ECOWAS, like Nigeria, is involved in a diplomatic dispute with a nation like Burkina Faso, it definitely makes the situation more high profile. Now, we've seen ECOWAS step in before when there have been military coups or tensions between nations in the region. In the Mali and Niger, ECOWAS has worked to mediate and even impose sanctions to encourage restoration of democratic governance. However, Burkina Faso's exit from ECOWAS earlier this year complicates things. With the political landscape shifting and Burkina Faso now aligned more closely with Mali and siding Niger, it means that ECOWAS may not be able to exert the same pressure on Burkina Faso as they would on other member states. Still, Nigeria, being one of the strongest military and economic powers in the region, has a huge influence, and I think Burkina Faso knows that. This is why I believe that, despite the tension, Burkina Faso is likely to resolve this matter diplomatically, because both countries are aware of the bigger picture. The importance of peace and cooperation in West Africa. In situations like these, the role of regional bodies becomes even more significant. But here's the thing. Nigeria's approach to this particular issue might set the tone for how future conflicts and misunderstandings are handled in West Africa. If Nigeria is successful in resolving this peacefully, it could serve as a model for regional conflict resolution in the future. Imagine other countries looking at this incident and saying, hey, Nigeria did it the right way by talking first and using diplomacy. And this is the beauty of diplomacy. It works when both sides always understand the importance of coming to the table and talking things through. Well, I'd say, instead of letting egos get in the way or turning to military force. Immediately, negotiations and compromise can help prevent major conflicts. Let's not forget that behind every plane, every soldier, every piece of equipment are real people who want to go home safely. Lives are at stake. Whenever tensions escalate, and this is a reality both Nigeria and Burkina Faso must keep in mind. Now, while all this diplomatic talk is going on, let's not ignore the impact this has on the citizens' fees of both countries. On the one hand, people in Nigeria are understandably worried about the safety of their soldiers and the status of the plane. After all, Nigeria's military forces, airspace, are crucial for not only their national security, but also regional stability. Many Nigerians may have been anxious at the thought of their soldiers being detained in another country. But I think thanks to the professionalism of the immediate Nigerian government, the calm and measured response has likely helped to ease tensions on the home front. On the other hand, we have to consider the people of Burkina Faso. This incident could be a sensitive matter for them as well. Burkina Faso's government has recently been under heavy international scrutiny because of the military leadership decisions and the exit from ECOWAS. If they mishandle this situation with Nigeria, it could lead to further isolation from the international community. However, if they show that they are committed to a peaceful diplomacy, they could potentially improve their relations with neighboring countries and better restore trust. At the end of the day, both nations want the same thing: peace and stability. And this is why diplomatic talks are so important. It's all about finding common ground and ensuring that no country is left behind. Nigeria and Burkina Faso can both emerge from this situation stronger and more united, especially if they prioritize the well-being of their citizens over any political disagreements. So, what's next? Well, we're already seeing signs that Burkina Faso is taking steps to resolve the issue. Reports suggest that the BDD detained soldiers and the plane are being released. This is a good sign, showing that the diplomatic talks are working. But we'll have to wait and see how things unfold in the coming days. There's still a lot to be resolved, but if both sides continue to show good faith and respect for one another, then this could indeed be a successful diplomatic intervention. In the meantime, let's remember the power of communication. The ability to sit down, talk, and work things out is more important than ever in today's world. Countries can't afford to let small incidents turn into big problems. Conflict resolution is about always understanding each other, learning from mistakes, and finding common ground. As we wrap up this chapter of the story, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. First of all, the situation between Nigeria and Burkina Faso highlights just how fragile international relations can be. Especially when our military forces, besides us and the sovereignties are involved. But it also shows us that with patience and diplomacy, even the most tense situations can be resolved peacefully. So, will this issue with the detained plane and soldiers mark a turning point for relations between Nigeria and Burkina Faso? Only time will tell, but I'm optimistic that a peaceful resolution is on the horizon. What do you think, guys? Do you believe Nigeria's diplomatic approach will work? Do you think Burkina Faso will honor its commitment to release the soldiers and plane, or is this just the beginning of a bigger issue? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Before you go, don't forget to like this video if you found it informative, and subscribe so you can stay updated with the latest stories. You won't want to miss any of the exciting news coming up. Stay tuned for more, and remember, peace is always the way forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.